Well, hey guys, hope you're doing well, and welcome to the podcast Thought Club. Today, I'm Sats Solanki, and we're going to be delving into a conversation today in episode 5. Gosh, how did we get here already? Thanks so much for tuning in, and let me just say really quickly before we dive into today's topic on Thought Club, please do hit subscribe, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever you are listening on, connecting with. Then you will get me rocking up in your space with more conversations, either just rambling thoughts from yours truly, or also some conversations with some guests coming up as well. Please do that. Please follow me on Instagram. Would love to chat more. This is really just trying to be, I guess, an entry to conversation. And I think it's fascinating that we arrive at certain conclusions, certain beliefs, whether religious or philosophical or scientific, or however we think, we arrive at certain conclusions and we live our lives. It's like we're never on pause in life. We're constantly living. We're constantly making decisions. We're constantly, living out our lives. We're living as a product of the way that we think, but we rarely stop to consider how we think and why we think what we think, which is really what this podcast is all about on Thought Club. And today we are talking about reincarnation. I know, why not? Let's do it. Reincarnation is the idea that is powered in a whole heap of religions: Buddhism, Hinduism, Sikhism, and so on, that, the soul or a person's consciousness basically never dies or continues to live. And so, when you die, in theory, when you physically die, your soul continues into another life of some sort, and there's all sorts of trains of thought. I would not necessarily say that I'm an expert in such religions, but I understand the basic idea. A lot of my family are Hindu, and so it's quite an interesting idea, and it's one I wanted to bring into conversation because it's a very attractive idea, particularly to us in the West. Alongside reincarnation, you get this idea of karma. Now, karma, on the face of it, we've all heard of karma, do good and good things will happen to you. Do bad, bad things will happen to you. And so it's this idea that you will get back to you what you do, which actually seems like quite good on the surface of it. I mean, it makes sense. And all of us are looking, what I think is interesting, all of us are looking for some sort of justice. When you're watching a film and someone does something that's bad, or when you hear a story of someone who's cheated or lied or taken advantage of someone else or stolen, or, whatever that is, we all want that person to fail. we want that person to experience some sort of karma coming back to them. Now, it's really interesting if someone does something wrong, but they do it kind of for the right reasons. So maybe they kill someone in self-defense, or they stand up to a bully, and they if someone does something like that, we actually get there's a different emotion in us that we actually want that person to succeed. And so it kind of in us, it seems that there is a certain amount of desire for justice in us. We want good and evil, whether we believe in it or not, however we derive what those things are. We are all looking for some sort of morality to not just guide us, but judge us. We want to be judged, and we want evil people to be judged. We don't want evil people, murderers and whatever, running around murdering us. We want a society that's safe, and in that we desire some sense of karma. And that's why karma is a really attractive idea. And alongside reincarnation is also a really interesting idea, because it basically kind of gives us the idea that we can just keep on living. And it's not that it doesn't matter what we do, but it's almost like it's deferred. We defer what we do until later in life. And so, I'm a good person, I'm doing good, but also, hey, I'm going to definitely, in the end of my life, we're going to kind of float into this consciousness, into this new way of living. And let me just do a little side point. So our daughter is learning, she's in year 3 this year, she's learning about religions. We're in quite a multicultural area. And so there's a lot of conversation. She's asking me questions about religion. And one of the things I think is really interesting is that the way that school, at least this school in the UK, is teaching religion, is teaching them very individually. So this really makes sense. You know, they're not saying, hey, this one's right, this one's wrong. They're not allowed to make this sort of judgments or encouragements, of course. They're just teaching, this is what this religion believes, this is what this religion believes, this is what Judaism is, this is what Hinduism is, this is what Islam is, this is what Christianity is, and so on. And so I think it's interesting that even in our very nature of education, that there's never really that conversation about which is right. and like the reason I say this is not to, you know, poke fun at other people's religion, but because I am somebody who genuinely wants to know, like, which one is right. I've grown up in a Christian home. My parents were Christian, but I've always thought, like, is this real? Or is this made up? Is this random? Like, you know, as a kid, you just kind of believe everything your parents tell you. But there is a point as you grow up where you question, you think, does that make sense to me? And, you know, I've always been a rebel. I got into like heavy metal as a teenager. There's always been something in me that doesn't want to conform, that resists just doing what people tell me just because they tell me to do it. And so for me, that quest for truth and what is actually true is a really genuinely deep desire in me. And so I think these conversations are really important, particularly because most people travel through their environment of what their parents believed or what they were taught or what their friends, whatever influences on their life shaped in their childhood, bring them through, and they never think about why they believe what they believe. And one such idea that is very just popular in Western culture right now, even if people haven't grown up with maybe exposure to those sorts of religions, is this idea of reincarnation. And I want to just bring a thought about why reincarnation and karma, it just seems like a really bad idea. and it's simply this, it's brilliant for justice. Like, it feels like, yes, we've ticked justice. If someone does wrong, they're going to be corrected. And we all want that. I don't know why, we just do. We feel like it's fair. In fact, you know, even if we've done something wrong, we actually there is a desire, and I'm going to make up studies now, but I feel like I've read stuff that the people, criminals who are eaten up by this kind of guilt that they've done something wrong and they need to confess to someone. And I think that's just something wired into our human nature, that we actually do need correction, we do need justice. And so Buddhism and all Hinduism, all of these religions that incorporate reincarnation and karma, you know, that justice thing seems to be really written in there. I think the thing that is really missing is any sense of grace. So, for example, you know, what if I can't stop doing stuff that's wrong? What if I've got like a mental disorder? What if I, you know, have grown up in an environment where I am doing wrong, and I'm in an environment where I'm taught to steal, I'm taught to, you know, do whatever sins or just bad things we would all just socially agree, hey, that's bad, don't do that. What if that's what I've been taught? What if that's my environment? What if I have to do that out of necessity? How is that therefore assessed? It feels fairly unfair that we're all judged on the same sort of plane, even though all of us start from a different place. And so it seems to me that justice needs to be balanced by grace. If you have justice on its own, it just means that everybody on the bottom stays on the bottom. Because if you're poor and you don't have food, well, you got to eat. And so there seems to be no grace for that situation. And so, and of course, the argument might be, well, the thing is that if you are born into that situation, that's a sign that that's karma from what you did in the past, in your past life. And I think this is where this whole concept becomes really, really, really interesting, because what we end up with is, as well as no grace, is we end up also with a sense of no mercy, because reincarnation teaches us to look at people in their difficulty, whether that's a sickness, whether that's you know, poverty, whether that's just whatever that is, and we're conditioned to look in and say, well, that's just karma. And the thing is that you're getting that because you deserve that. You get what you deserve. That's the essence of this conversation. You get what you deserve. And, you know, all of us connect with that on some level, because we know people should get what they deserve, because that's the right thing. It just feels like the right fit. We all desire that. For some reason in our souls seems to be hardwired into our expectations, our desires, that we need that in our society. But that's great when it's someone else. But what about when it's you? What about when you get sick? What about when you lose your job? What about when you're cheated on? What about when you're let down, when you're oppressed? It seems pretty tough. Justice is great when you look through the world at everybody else, but when it comes your way, it seems pretty tough. And karma says stuff that you're experiencing that is negative is a result of the decisions you've made. And that seems pretty harsh to me. And not only that, it seems pretty judgmental that we would look at everybody in our world who's having a tough time and say, well, that's karma. Look at me. I'm fine. I'm doing great. Therefore, and yet this is a really popular idea in society. And of course, you can look at things like the caste system in India, and you can see it creates a category of humans. People who enter into privilege are clearly, they've got good karma. And we celebrate people who are doing well. But everybody who's not doing well, that's kind of their own fault. And so there's very little room for compassion, for mercy, for generosity, because why would I be generous to you if you're here because you deserve what you've got? If you're poor, but you deserve it, why am I going to be generous to you? Why am I going to feel inclined to share what I have with you? Well, the only reason would be to get some good back in the future. And this is where karma really reveals its ugly side, because if karma is just about me, if karma is just about what I get in the future, my generosity kind of feels a bit cheap. My kindness is still tainted by my own self-orientation. I'm only being kind to you so that I can get something back from you. I only love you that I can get love back in the future. I'm only giving away that so I can get something back. And we see hints of that in some of the Christian faith as well. We see hints of that in Islam as well. We see people, give and you'll get. And that's the scripture, it will be given back to you even more. And we see people lean into that same idea that, I'm only giving to get. But I think maybe giving should really just be about giving with no expectation. We all know that feeling when somebody gives you something and you just feel like there's strings attached, like there's an agenda here, you want something back from me, and it's not a nice feeling. It's kind of a dirty sort of I'm being used sort of feeling, and it's not very nice. It's like being in a relationship where it's just about sex. It's not about intimacy. It's just something you can get from me. I don't know, I'm not describing that personally, but we all know of relationships like that. We see relationships like that around us. There's something cheap about it. There's something nasty about it. There's something that's just not good, and that's what karma brings. Karma says, I just got to do something just to get something back, or I can be really clever about it. If I did really clever about it, you might not feel that feeling, but it's still the same thing. Deep down, I'm working to get something from you. So I think it's really interesting that we don't, as a society, talk about those things. If I was to pick on Islam for a moment, I'm not super familiar with the Quran and the verses, but we've all heard of promises of the afterlife with lots of women. Virgins and promises and stuff that just seems very like carnal and just kind of, I don't know, that doesn't seem right. It's funny that we never really stop to look at these things, and we live in a culture where we says all religions are equal, all things are good, that's good for you. I think that shows that we don't really care about people. Not that we need to go around telling people how they're wrong about stuff, but if we're never willing to ask questions or have these conversations, but we're happy for people to live. When people are living in a karma reality, they are living trapped in a world that is full of justice with no mercy or grace. And also they're trapped in a world that struggles to have genuine love, because love is always about someone else. It's about something that is separate from you. When you love something just because it's to get love back, that's not love. It's not the definition of love. And so you see needy relationships where people don't really love, they just want to get something back. And so when people are trapped in something that is not true, it's worth saying. It's worth thinking about how we go on a mission to bring truth, whatever you believe truth to be. Truth, if you have love, you want to share the truth. If you don't care about people, well, why do I need to share the truth with you? I've already got the truth. But truth and love, that seems to be the golden combination, that I have the truth, I know how to see the world, it's changing how I interact, it's changing my mental health, the pressure of doing good, the pressure of keeping up appearances, when I've got to pray every day at set times, that pressure has a weight on our soul and on our minds. And when I see people with that pressure, I just think, hey, I want to help you out here. I don't want you to live with that sort of weight. And that's what love does. Love takes truth and wants to share it. So, hey, I hope this has been helpful for you. I think it's really important that we actually ask questions about other people's beliefs. And I love doing that. I love hearing about why people believe what they believe. I think we should assess everything. This has been Reincarnation. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Is there something that I'm not seeing in this conversation that you think is really different about some of the religions that incorporate these concepts? I would love to hear from you. Convince me. I want to be convinced. So let's have a conversation. Follow me on Instagram at Solanki, and we'll see you very soon.